I invite you to stand for the reading of the gospel. The Holy Gospel is from Matthew, the 14th chapter, beginning with the 13th verse. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." And Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves and 2 fishes," they answered. "Bring them to me," he said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves, and he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people, and they all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 baskets of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. The Gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Why should we see it? Do you have a favorite book that you just loved when you first read it, and you went back and read it again, maybe again, more than once even? A favorite book that was worth repeating. How many of you have a movie that you just thoroughly enjoyed and you'd watch it again and again because it's your favorite movie? It's so good. You think about, in my life, Stephanie and I went to see Gone with the Wind with her when we were in college. Sat through 3 hours in intermission. It's a good movie. We watched it again and again and again together. Do you have a favorite story that's yours? Sometimes in families you have a favorite story. Whenever families get together, they begin to tell the tales of days gone by amongst family members. Maybe it's humorous, maybe it's sentimental, whatever the case is. There are family stories that are worth repeating. They are your favorite stories. I know my family was just up here to help us move into our new house, and every person that my parents met, there was 1 or 2 David stories that they shared reluctantly. I mean, it was good. They were their favorites. Not mine. Today's gospel reading is one of those favorite stories, the feeding of the 5,000. You see, it appears in all 4 Gospels. It's a favorite because of each of those Gospel readings. For this reason, it tells something about human nature. It tells something about our story, for which we are drawn into it. About how human beings will see that there is never quite enough, and we'll always want more. How it is that we as human beings have limited vision and we can't always see the possibilities. And how it is that we have within us a hunger for things deeper. It also tells the story of God. God's story becomes our favorite. It shares about God's great generosity and his abundance as he places it before us. Last week you heard the parable of the mustard seed, and here's an example today in this favorite gospel reading, how you take something small and it becomes used for a greater purpose. Last week it was a small mustard seed, grows into a great tree. This week it is this little lunch, these loaves and fishes are used to feed the hungry and thousands. Yes, it's a favorite story, and Jesus told it, and over and over and over again, the disciples must have told it too. These favorite stories in the Gospels aren't always repeated. For instance, the story of the Good Samaritan is only shared once. The story of the prodigal son is only shared once in the Gospels. But this story, 5 loaves and 2 fishes, is told not just once in Mark, once in Matthew, once in Luke, and once in John, but 4 times altogether. It is an incredible story that bears repeating time and time again. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, even though we've heard the story more than once, even though it seems so familiar to us that at times it may be bland, we thank you, Lord, that this word is active and that this story today, this favorite story, is one that we can learn from and grow in faith. In your name we pray. Amen. I'm a very visual person. I like to imagine what something is like. And if you would join me in that and imagine in your mind's eye springtime, if you would. Springtime in Israel. This is approximately when this took place. In Israel, there are rains that come to northern Israel along the Sea of Galilee in March and April. Up until that point, the hillsides are dry and they're very desolate looking, not much life to be seen. But when those March and April rains come and begin to water the earth in the springtime, the hillsides along the Sea of Galilee start to blossom and turn beautiful green, and the flowers of spring start to come out. This is the surroundings that Jesus walked along the Sea of Galilee. This is where the people sat to listen to him, where Jesus healed people. This beautiful setting of springtime on the hillsides around Galilee. Now, Jesus was gaining great notoriety all around this area and beyond. He was gaining notoriety as a teacher and as a healer. And you've heard in the past weeks the different stories about how Jesus was a teacher, and then now also the miracles as he's healing. Great crowds began to come out to him, bringing thousands out to be healed and to hear him speak. I got to think about what a crowd of 5,000 plus would be like, and just tried to put that into a context and looked around the Twin Cities for places that hold 5,000 or more. And the one that came up was the St. Paul Saints new stadium over in St. Paul there. Holds right around 7,000. And so with men and women both together, if you can imagine the seating for that, more comfortable, less comfortable, I'm not sure which. But if you can imagine that size of crowd that Jesus was speaking to. Not only that, but before this, the disciples had been sent out, empowered by Jesus with the Holy Spirit, to do 3 things: to cast out demons, to heal the sick, and proclaim the kingdom of God. So they were all out and amongst the villages and the towns before this, and as that happened, and as those things occurred, it gained even greater notoriety for this event that you hear today. Verse 13, if you want to look at that. When Jesus heard what had happened, this points out that he had heard of John the Baptist. I'm sorry, I missed my spot. John the Baptist had been executed. And when he had heard about that, he got in a boat on the Sea of Galilee and then sailed away to a more solitary location. He didn't want to be with crowds when he thought of his cousin being killed by Herod and what had taken place. Now, the thing you should know, though, is that when you are standing on the Sea of Galilee shoreline and you see Jesus and the disciples leave in the boat, you can see them fairly well as they leave and where they're headed. And they would have left there and went about 4 miles to the north and to the east along the coast, and the people are watching the whole time. Where Jesus is going. And they decided that they would follow him. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot then. So as they went through villages all along the coast, they gained momentum and they told people Jesus is headed this way. And so they continued to go. And when Jesus finally then comes ashore, hoping to have some solitude and to be alone, this large crowd starts to come then to where he is on the shore, and he looks at them. Now, if it had been you or I, we would have looked at the crowd and thought of all the people that were coming, and we would have thought, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Instead, Jesus looks at the crowd, and the scripture records that he had compassion on them. He saw the need that was there in their lives. He saw the sick and the infirmed and the possessed that they brought to him. And when he looked at them and their faces and their eyes and heard their stories, he began to heal them. Can you imagine a crowd of 5,000 people, Jesus walking in amongst them? This is before sound systems and all the rest of the things that go with it. But he walked amongst them and healed them and brought wholeness back to their life. Jesus cared for these people. As we think about that in our own lives, this compassionate healer, Jesus, we think of the physical needs that we have, don't we? Or the people we know of, our loved ones, our family members. We know of cancer. We know of the treatments. We know of people who have other things that are going on in their life physically, that healing would bring to them. Emotional healing that could come. Relational healing is part of their life. Or spiritual healing as well. When we hear that Jesus had compassion on them, we hope and pray that Jesus has compassion then in our own lives as well. Later on then in the scriptures here, it says as evening approached. So we know he spent pretty much the whole day doing this. The disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late." So it's towards evening. They asked Jesus then to send the crowds away so that they could go to the village and buy themselves some food. Imagine that point in that conversation with Jesus. Because Jesus' reply that comes back to them is, well, they don't need to go away. They don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. All right. Put yourself in the disciples' shoes, or sandals, if you will. Jesus turns to you and says, you give them something to eat. Lord, right? We only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. We only have. Only. O-N-L-Y. Only have. How many times have we thought that very same thought? I only have this amount. I'd like to do more for the poor. I would like to give more for the hungry. I'd like to support more through my church. But I only have this amount. Isn't that just how we as human beings often look at life, is that it is limited? That our vision for what is possibilities there is not large enough to understand what God can do with only a little bit. And today's scripture is an example for us of how it is that in faith and in trust then, when we give only a little of what we have, how God can bless that even further. Now, we share an offering here during our worship. People give gifts to the church throughout the year in a variety of different ways, and all of those gifts that are given go to support the ministry that happens here at Peace Lutheran Church. One of which is how it is that we help feed the hungry around our area and elsewhere. For instance, right here in Watertown itself, go down to the community center, and there's a Friends for Life food shelf that is there. Some of our members go down and they volunteer their time. They only have a little bit of time, but they give that gift of time down there to sort canned goods out, to shelf food, to bag up meals into grocery sacks and the like, and giving that little bit of time, only that little bit of time, makes a difference in another person's life who does not have the same resources for food, who comes hungry, asking for help through the Friends for Life food shelter. So when you hear Jesus' words to you today, it says, you feed them, what does that mean to you? Well, here's an opportunity that your church does, and others throughout our community, to help. If you drive just a little bit further north, and you go up to Delano, and you go to Love Inc. up there, they help people in a variety of ways, which you can do the same. Ruth, you have folks every month or so, or 2 months, go down to Feed My Starving Children, ride together in a van, and they assemble meals to go overseas to a variety of different places to help undernourished and hungry people, all of which you support here through your church. And I just got an email from our connection to India and to the work that is being done there through a school and orphanage, for which they provide those meals to these children as well. And there are many more ways to do that. So, when you think of what you have as only a little, know how much God can use a little to do a lot. Whether it's your gift of money, or your time, or your prayers, or so many other ways. God can do that. Jesus is asking you today to give something to eat. Now, how does the end come? The end is quite clear here, right? He says that they all ate and were satisfied. They all ate and were satisfied. Isn't that a great feeling when you're satisfied, when you've eaten what you need the most, and it hit the spot, and you just go, that's so good. God offers you that meal today. He offers you that meal that comes to you as grace, as mercy, as love, and forgiveness. It's there through His Son, Jesus. Amen? Amen. Let's stand and sing.